Hello and welcome to a brief lecture on proofreading. I do mean truly brief. If this were happening in the classroom, this lecture would take place over the course of at least one entire 75-minute class period and probably spill over into several other days as I kind of picked up other pieces. Here I'm going to try to do it all in about 10 minutes. As always, online learning is a type of self-directed learning, so you're going to have to take a lot of responsibility for learning some of these concepts on your own. Luckily, you don't probably have to learn them from scratch. You know them already. It's about sort of reinforcing the learning that you've received throughout your public education. You see over here on the left-hand side, there's a list of proofreading abbreviations. This is my starting place for you because as you start receiving formal assignments back from me through Desire to Learn, you'll notice sometimes that in my comments I have included these abbreviations, and it's important that you understand what I mean by them. So I have each abbreviation, I have an explanation of what it is, I have a page number where you can find it in the book if indeed you can. And then I have an example, a brief example for each one, and that's where I'm really going to have to sacrifice some time. One thing that's important for you to realize is that the midterm exam in this class covers these issues. It's all about grammar and proofreading, and so you do need to study it. I put an asterisk next to each of the things here that will be covered on the midterm, just so you know. So please make sure you take note of that. All of those do have a corresponding chapter or part in the Wadsworth Handbook so that you can do some additional studying, and I will be also delivering to you more resources as we approach the midterm. Okay, so to dive right into it, we've got 13 proofreading abbreviations. They are, number one, typo. Fairly self-explanatory, right? In fact, typo doesn't even have an explanation because in itself it really isn't an abbreviation. We all understand that a typo is something that happens mechanically or manually, even with our hands, where you misstroke something on the keyboard and create an error. I'm going to use it to note several distinct things, but in particular some formatting issues. Say at the end of a sentence, if you have 2 periods instead of 1, or if the number of spaces after a period between sentences isn't consistent, I will note that. Real quickly, some people have been taught to put 1 space after a period. Some people have been taught to put 2 spaces after a period. I put 1 personally. I don't care if you use 2. All I care about is that you be consistent. Don't use 3. That's too many. 1 or 2 and be consistent. Same with indenting paragraphs. I either say hit the tab button once to indent the paragraph or hit the space bar 5 times. I don't care what you do as long as you're consistent. And you'll see that throughout this, consistency plays an important role in my philosophy and approach to teaching and grading grammar and mechanics. Number 2 is spelling, of course, SP. Everybody understands that increasingly our culture has some spelling issues. Some of that comes from text messaging and email and this level of informality we have in those forms of written communication. For whatever the reason, it continues to be a problem. I guess another one would be spell check and our tendency to rely on spell check. It certainly can sabotage your grade very quickly if you don't take the time. A lot of these things on here aren't about learning a new skill. It's about reinforcing in your own mind a dedication to your own writing, a diligence about going back through and proofreading. How much do you proofread? I know that there are students who type a paper, save it, and send it. You need to be typing a paragraph, rereading that paragraph. Write another paragraph, reread both paragraphs. Write a 3rd paragraph, reread it all. Continuously rereading, continuously correcting. By the time you get to the end of that draft, you should have already corrected a lot of your mistakes. Number 3 is one word. This is simply 1W is the abbreviation. It means one word. It comes up a lot of times in instances like this. I have 2 sentences here, both using the phrase every day. So every day I go for a run. This is correct. In the second one it says I need to go for my everyday run, where that's been used as an adjective before run. That is actually incorrect and needs to be drawn together into one word. So that's what I mean by one word. It comes up almost always with what we would consider to be compound words. Number 4 is WW, or wrong words. This has a place in the textbook, page 582. You might want to check out. These are your homophones. Everybody knows what they are. Everybody has ones they struggle with. The real obvious ones are to, and to, there, and there, but it goes on and on. Affect and effect, whether and weather. Another one that I see that doesn't quite sound exactly the same, and that's the thing with the homophone, right? They're words that sound alike but are spelled differently and have different meanings. A pesky one for a lot of students happens to be then and than. They don't sound exactly alike, but I sort of consider them to be homophones because they get mixed up so frequently. Number 5 is punctuation, P-U-N-C. Has a whole part in the textbook, okay? Part 13, it begins on page 631, but it goes for a pretty long time. Students, when I ask the question, well, what's the piece of punctuation that college level writers struggle with most students are going to say the comma. Well, that may be true, but we're going to talk about comma issues really in number 8 and 9. The punctuation issues I see a lot of students having are with apostrophes before possessive, or at the end of possessive nouns. Question marks forgotten at the end of questions. A lot of times people type out questions but put a period at the end of it. And semicolons, struggling to understand when semicolons can be used. And unfortunately, I don't have time to go into it right now, but the semicolon is very simple to use. It can only be used between 2 complete sentences, but you can find that explanation within the Wadsworth. Number 6, C-O-N-V for conversational. There is something in the textbook you can look at for this on page 568 as part of the same section on word choice that's down here at the bottom. Essentially, some students have a little bit of trouble finding their academic voice. And it's important to realize that we all need to have that academic voice. When we sit down to write, we're writing in standard American English when we're writing academic papers. It's maybe very different from the way you write a text message or an email, or the way you talk when you're at home or with your friends. But you have to learn to adopt that voice, and I put words up here like including like and whatever, just to remind us that there's a sort of informality that doesn't work well with these academic essays. So you may have no troubles with that. If you do, I'll point it out to you. It's usually easily corrected. Next we move into 7, 8, and 9, more sentence level error types of problems. First of all, we have FRAG, or fragment, on page 534 in your book. Fragments are usually caused by leaving something out, leaving a subject out, leaving a verb out, leaving both of them out, sometimes because we begin a sentence with because. Remember, in junior high or so, when your teachers told you could never begin a sentence with because, that's not true. You can. They were just trying to get you to avoid making fragments. Here we have held in contempt of court by a presiding judge. Well, it's missing both the subject and the verb, he and was. Number 8 and 9 run on in the comma splice, and just be warned, the Wadsworth, like a lot of other textbooks, like to call the comma splice a fused sentence. I prefer comma splice. You definitely need to look into this. This tends to be an area that a lot of students struggle with. Here in 8, we have a run-on. The fans rose in their seats. The game was almost over. You have 2 complete sentences. The fans rose in their seats, and the game was almost over. There's nothing in between them. That's what creates the run-on. That can be corrected by adding a period between the 2. In some cases, by adding a semicolon, or by adding a comma plus a coordinating conjunction. One of the fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. The fans rose in their games, comma, and the game was almost over. Number 9, comma splice. Comma splice is very, very similar to a run-on. The only difference is instead of having nothing in between the 2 sentences, there is only a comma. So in this case, you could either get rid of the comma and add a period, Again, maybe you could use a semicolon. You already have the comma, so you would need to just add one of those coordinating conjunctions or one of those fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. This is an area I typically like to spend a whole class period on. It's very important, and I will be providing you with more resources on that before you have to take your midterm exam. The next little group is about agreement, subject-verb agreement and pronoun agreement. Number 10, SVA, subject-verb agreement on page 617. This is the essential rule we learn about sentence structure in the English language all the way back in first and second grade, that if you have a boy, he runs. If you have boys, they run. Boy runs, boys run. Okay, so here you have the boy who was raised by wolves runs through the forest. And that is correct. Sometimes, though, there's a tendency to leave this S off of the verb because your eye focuses on wolves run, right? Because wolves would run. But it's not the wolves who are doing the running here, it's the boy back here. So you have to make sure that S is on there. If not, they're not in agreement. Pronoun agreement works in a very similar type of way. One of the most common types of pronoun agreement errors we see, or rather pronoun disagreement, would be when we have indefinite pronouns. Everyone, anyone, someone, anything, those types of words. They sound very plural in nature, don't they? But they're actually singular, and that's why the pronoun in this sentence is incorrect. Everyone in the debate thought they were correct. They is incorrect here. Instead, you would want to write, everyone in the debate thought he or she was correct. That would be the right way to do that. All right, number 12, awkward. This is just the one where I kind of throw up my hands and say, I don't know what you've done wrong here, but it's incorrect. Please go back and try to fix it, because sometimes things happen that are just sort of beyond any of these other explanations. And finally, WC for word choice. There's a whole part in the Wadsworth on this, part 11, starting on page 567. Word choice problems can come from these conversational types of issues that have to do with, slang and diction, but even just other types of errors that can be caused for by a variety of reasons, including sloppiness or uncertainty about vocabulary, things like that. And a malaprop is a type of error that happens where the wrong word is used. It sounds right, but it doesn't quite fit. There's a famous Yogi Berra quote where he said, Texas has a lot of electrical votes, but what he meant was electoral votes, and that would be an example of a malaprop and also an example of poor word choice. So that's a very quick overview of the proofreading abbreviations I most commonly use in your paper and identification of the 7 abbreviations on here that will be covered on your midterm exam that comes up at the end of week 4. As always, please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.